On my quest to become the ultimate muscle mummy, I've recently updated my workout routine. I've gone from a 5-day split of 3 lower body days and 2 upper body days to a 2 on, 1 off split. This new split has allowed me to better manage my recovery and also my intensity in my training sessions to get the most out of every single workout. And I won't lie to you guys, in just the past 5 months, the results of this have been pretty crazy. And since we're all aiming to get jacked this year, I thought it would be fun to share my new routine with you all. I'll also share some tips and tricks to get the most out of every single one of your workouts. And starting us off on an awfully diabolical note, of course we have my lower one workout, quads. Now before we get into the nitty gritty of the workout, I like to first start with doing calves. Doing calves first is honestly a game changer. Not only does it get them out of the way, but it also means you can put the most energy into training them as possible and actually see some sort of growth from the exercises you're doing instead of skipping them if you leave them until the end of your workout. Recently with my calves, I've really been focused on stretching out the bottom half of the movement. I read this study like a month or so ago that showed that out of 3 groups of people training calves, those who stayed within the bottom range of motion and didn't come up onto their toes saw nearly twice the growth compared to the other groups. So because I'm my own personal guinea pig, I decided to try it out, and honestly for the first few weeks I did it, I could barely walk the next day. Getting into our first quad exercise of the session, we have the leg extension. Now some of you might be surprised that this bad boy is first, considering so many people say you should do your compound lifts first, and this is quite clearly not a compound lift. The leg extension actually targets one quad muscle that squats don't, and this particular muscle also happens to be one that's lacking on my quads, so I like doing the leg extension first in order to put as much energy into growing it as possible. Running on the theme of doing exercises to target my weak points first, I'm now going into the lying leg curl for my hammies. I've noticed that my hamstrings are a serious weakness in my legs, so I've made it my sole mission on leg days to absolutely hammer them. Just kidding, kind of. I have been doing them closer to the start of my workouts though when I hit legs, because like my calves, I really just want to put as much energy into growing them as possible. To make sure you're targeting your hamstrings as much as possible, you want to think about driving your hips into the pad as you curl your legs up. This way you're keeping yourself stable during the movement and allowing the weight to be placed on your hamstrings and not swung up by your hips. And finally, we move on to the Smith machine squat. I like using the Smith machine for squats over the barbell because it allows you to push closer to failure while being more stable within the machine, and also allows you to slow down and control your reps without feeling like you're going to snap your back in the process. To try and get the most out of this exercise, recently I've been really focusing on slowing down the stretch portion of this movement and getting as deep as I comfortably can within the squat. I also always get a lot of questions about the knee sleeves I use, and these ones are just the GYMSHARK 3mm knee sleeves in a size small. For all my movements, I always do a few sets first just to warm up the muscle group I'm about to start working, so I did 1 or 2 sets first with no weight before moving into 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps with weight. And because we already did leg extension and leg curl, my legs are already pretty warm at this point to get into my working weight. The main thing you should focus on while squatting is bracing your core. This is super important to protect your back and helps you keep good form during the entire movement. To brace, all you're going to do is take a deep breath in, fill your belly with air, and think about tightening your abs like you're about to be punched in the gut. Maintain this tightness and hold your breath during the entire squat, and exhale once you've completed the movement. For our next and final quad exercise, we have the Bulgarian split squat. I used to do these in the Smith machine for more stability, but I recently switched back to dumbbells, and these are demonic to say the least. If you struggle setting up for this exercise, I would recommend first sitting back into the foot support and plopping your working leg out in front of you and then sitting up from there. This will help you position yourself without having to do the famous split squat hop and lose your balance in the exercise. Again, to target your quads here and not your glutes, you want to make sure you're keeping your torso as upright as possible throughout the movement and really focus on pushing the weight through the foot of your working leg. I will do 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps of these, and to make them quad focused over glute focused, make sure you're keeping your working leg's foot close to the bench or wherever you're using to rest your non-working leg on. And your torso as upright as possible to drive that front leg forward and stretch out those quads. And for a little fun finisher, I also like to do a final set of these with no weight, just to absolutely burn out my quads and make doubly sure that I won't be able to walk correctly tomorrow. To finish us off here, we're going to be doing a few sets of adduction. My quads have honestly never looked so thick since adding these into my routine, so if you're looking for that thick quad swoop, I really recommend adding these into your own routine. I do around 12 to 15 reps of these for 3 sets. And just like that, that's our first leg day of the week ticked off. I will see you guys tomorrow for our first upper workout of the week. Good morning, Pookie, and welcome to our first upper workout of the week, chest and shoulders. And of course, first up is a seated shoulder press. Now, if you've been around here for a while, you know how I feel about this exercise, but she is great for the front delts, so she is here to stay, unfortunately. I'll start by doing 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps of this one, of course, starting with a lighter weight to warm up before going into my heavier working sets. To feel these as much as possible in my shoulders, I like to keep my eccentric as slow as possible and really explode on the way back up, keeping my shoulders under tension for as long as I can until I go to failure. Next up, we're going to be doing a bit of chest work. Now, I absolutely used to hate chest day, and I used to skip it altogether for at least a year. But recently, I've gotten back into doing chest, and I can't believe I didn't do it for so long. Girls, training chest honestly does wonders for your tatas and makes them look so perky. I really recommend. So to start here, we're just doing some light on the dumbbell incline press. I'll do 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps of these before moving into my next chest exercise, the flat dumbbell bench press. Now, I know some of you will be screaming at me through the screen, telling me I should be doing the flat press before incline, but hear me out, okay? Incline press helps you grow your upper chest and shoulders more so than flat bench. And because I personally want to grow my shoulders as much as possible at the moment, I like doing my incline before flat bench, just to put more energy into my upper chest and shoulders and not just my chest overall. Exercise selection really depends on what your current gym goals are. There are no strict rights or wrongs, just decisions that will bring you closer to your own personal goals. And after finishing off my chest, I like to go back into shoulders, but this time focusing on my side delts, not my front delts. And here I'm just doing the dumbbell side lateral raises. This is probably one of the only exercises that has stayed in my routine since I started lifting, just for how good they are at targeting your side delts. Also, can you guys tell how tired I was this day? The yawn count on this video is going to go absolutely crazy. Maybe we can start a drinking game, or a protein shake drinking game to keep it more on brand, I guess. I'll do these for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps, and after completely frying off my shoulders, I like to then move on to a bit of tricep work. I like keeping my tricep exercises nice and simple, so here I'm just doing some tricep pushdowns with a straight bar cable attachment. Honestly, I prefer doing these single arm, but I wanted to change it up a bit on the split, so I'm going to keep these in and see how I feel after a few weeks. I will probably swap them back out again though, I'm not gonna lie. I'll do around 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps of these. Honestly, I find that my triceps are just that one muscle group that I kind of neglect, which is something I'll definitely focus on in my next split, but for now, 4 sets twice a week seems to do the trick in growing them slowly but surely. And then following my tricep work, I like to move on to a bit of rear delts. I honestly used to completely forget about training my rear delts, but now I try and dedicate some quality time to them twice a week in an attempt to get at least a little bit of growth. Here I'm just doing some single arm rear delt flies. I usually do these on a smaller cable machine so I can do both my rear delts at the same time, but the machine was being used, so we had to settle on single arm instead. The main thing you want to focus on when doing these is making sure the cable follows the path of your arm and keep your shoulders protracted or rolled slightly inward to keep the focus on your rear delts and not on your triceps or your shoulders. I do 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps on these, really focusing on controlling the movement as much as possible to keep that tension in my delt and not in any other muscle group. And last but by no means least, let's move on to a bit of abs. Now, the biggest mistake I see people make when trying to grow their abs is doing some insane ab routine that is actually more like HIIT cardio than an actual ab routine. Abs should be trained like any other muscle group, with weight and to failure. For my first ab exercise of the week, I like to do the hanging leg raise. This will bias your lower abs and is something you can also progress with by putting a little dumbbell in between your feet to add more weight. And just like that, we are done. Tomorrow is my rest day, so I'll see you guys in a couple of days for our next leg day of the week. Good morning, loves. Welcome back to hell. Oh, I mean leg day. Just kidding, I love leg day. Today we have our second leg day of the week, glutes and hamstrings. I used to train glutes 3 times a week, but recently reduced it back down to 2 times because I want to give some of my other muscle groups some more love. After frying our little calves for the second and thankfully final time this week, it's time to move on to toasting the buns. First up on the agenda today, we have the barbell hip thrust. Another shocker, because in my last split, I was avoiding the barbell hip thrust at all costs and doing this in the Smith machine instead. But this time around, I finally pulled back on my big girl pants and we're back doing these with the barbell. I honestly really do see more growth doing hip thrust with the barbell over the Smith machine, but sometimes I like being in denial and doing it on the Smith instead, okay? I recently started doing them on a slightly lower back support and oh my good lord, it has changed the game for me. You never realize how much better the exercise can be when you slightly modify your setup. So if you're not feeling these so much in your glutes, I really recommend changing up your back support and making sure you're using something that aligns with your armpits. Anything higher is likely going to make you overextend at the top of the movement and hurt your back. I started this one by working up to my top sets of 8 to 10 reps, really focusing on squeezing at the top of the movement since that's where we're going to get the most glute activation during this exercise. After contemplating your existence doing those, we're now going to move on to to our unilateral movement, the reverse lunge. I started doing these on the Smith machine and they are absolutely chef's kiss. I find I can really slow down the movement and focus on pushing the weight through my glutes as much as possible. Overdoing it with the dumbbells where I was kind of cheating the weight up a little bit with my quads. The biggest tip I will give you guys for feeling these in your glutes and not your quads is hinge at your hips first before going back into the movement. This will make sure the weight is being stretched through your glutes and set you up to use your glutes and not your quads during the entire move. I did around 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps of these and oh my god, my buns were on fire by the end of them. And for our final glute exercise of the day, we have the icon, the myth, the legend, the Romanian deadlift. These 3 glute exercises are honestly the holy trinity for me and are the 3 exercises I will always have in my routine to grow my glutes. Now this exercise can be tricky to get right but can give you the most insane stretch when done properly. The one thing that has really helped me nail my form on this one was thinking about pushing your bum back and up to the ceiling. You also only want to go as far down as you can still feel that stretch in your glutes, which is probably just below the knee or mid shin for most people, because if you go too low your back will take over and this is where you get unnecessary lower back pain. I did these for just 2 sets of 8 to 10 reps. You might not think that's enough, but trust me, after those 2 first glute exercises you'll understand why we're only doing 2 sets here. For hamstrings today I like to do the seated leg curl. I like doing my leg curl seated after glutes because I find it offers more stability, especially when I'm so tired after glutes. So I can really get the most out of training my hamstrings for growth. I started this one by warming up with a slightly lighter weight before going into some heavy curls. I'll do these for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps and then after that use a lighter weight for 1 last set. Finish doing as many reps as possible to failure. And lastly, we're doing a bit of abduction. Now, usually I start my glute day with this exercise to warm up my glutes, but the machine was being used when I got to the gym today, so we had to adapt and overcome and do it last instead. Most people online say that abduction is a waste of time, but honestly, it's still a good isolation movement for the glute medius, so I like doing it to either warm up my glutes or as a finisher at the end of my workout. Okay girlies, see you tomorrow for an upper workout. Hey girly pops, welcome back to our second upper session of the week. Today we're hitting a bit of back and arms, which is arguably one of my favourite days of this week. So first up, we're starting with a barbell bent over row. Again, another staple in my workout routine. For this exercise, to feel it in your back as much as possible, you want to make sure you're rowing into your belly button, not your tatas.
Got a blast!
The bent over row is great for working the upper and middle back, and I like to program it in first because it is pretty taxing. So I want to have as much energy to really push it as much as possible. I start by doing 3 sets of these for around 8 to 10 reps, really focusing on my form here and not ego lifting the weight like I used to do in the past. And once we've done those, it's time to move on to pull-ups. Now, if you can't yet do a pull-up, I would really recommend swapping these out for pull-downs or negatives, where you basically just jump up to the bar and slowly lower yourself down. If you guys saw my video on how to get your first pull-ups, then you'll know that to increase your pull-up game, you need to be focusing on increasing your pull-up volume over time. To do that, I'll do 4 to 5 sets of 4 reps. This way, I'm getting in more volume overall while pushing 2 or so reps shy of failure. Doing pull-ups this way helps to increase my max reps over time quicker than just going to failure on my first set and then getting some extremely sloppy reps on my second and third sets. And after finishing off our pull-ups, next we're moving on to a new addition into my routine, the single arm lat pull down. You can also do these on the machine if you have it, but my gym unfortunately does not have one, so we must adapt and overcome yet again. To really feel this one in your lats, you'll want to think about pulling your elbow down into your pocket and not just back. I also like to go nice and slow on the eccentric of this movement to get a deep stretch in my lats. I'll do these for 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps before moving on to my next and last back exercise. For my final little finisher back exercise, we're going to be doing the lat pullover. I absolutely love putting this exercise at the end of my back exercises to absolutely fry off my back and get a nice little back pump. As the name suggests, literally all we're doing here is pulling the bar down with our lats and slowly coming back up. I'll do these for 2 sets of around 10 to 12 reps and then I'll move on to my next exercise. Now for the second time this week, we're hitting our rear delts. This time the smaller cable machine was free, so I was able to do my rear delt flies how I normally do. Now the idea for these is the same as the single arm ones I did a few days ago, but instead we're going to be grabbing the opposite cable to our working side to make sure the cable is following the path of your arm to target those rear delts. I'll do these for 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps. Now for my next exercise, it wouldn't be back and biceps without a little bit of biceps, baby! I used to only do biceps once a week, but because they're honestly lacking on my physique, I've upped the frequency in my new split. I usually do preacher curls for biceps on back day, but again, we must adapt and overcome because the machine was taken. So we're doing incline curls instead. This exercise is great because it allows you to really get a stretch in those biceps and take them through a full range of motion without using a ton of momentum and taking the tension off our biceps. And last but by no means least, we have our second and last ab exercise of the week, weighted crunches. Now, ideally you would do this on a cable machine, but I have an irrational fear of doing cable crunches, so so these weighted crunches we'll have to do for now. To feel these as much as possible in those upper abs, you really want to contract your core and think about moving the weight from there as much as possible. After 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps, you're done. Time to rest and recoup. I'll see you in a couple days for our final leg day of the week. Good morning, my cutie pies. Welcome back to our final lower day of the week. Today is a full lower body session, so we're going to be hitting glutes, quads, and hamstrings today. And first up, we've got hamstrings. I like to start with the seated leg curl before my lying leg curl because I go super heavy on this exercise and find that I can get more stability doing it over lying leg curls. So like before, I'll warm up with some lighter weight just to get the blood flow going in my hammies before going to my 3 heavy working sets of 8 to 10 reps. I also tried strapping myself into the machine today for even more stability, and when I tell you, diabolical. It helped me push out an extra couple of reps and had me forcing back the tears by the end of my last set. I would recommend it, honestly. Okay, next up we have hamstrings again, this time on the lying leg curl. On this one, you're going to be going lighter than we did earlier on in the week for higher reps, mainly just because your hamstrings are already going to be fried, so I like pulling back on the weight slightly to make sure I can still get good form throughout the movement. I'll do 3 sets of these for 10 to 12 reps, and honestly, my legs become unbelievably jelly after this one, but it's so worth it. My hamstrings are finally growing due to the split, and it makes me want to shed several tears in sheer happiness. Okay, next up, we're moving on to quads, and of course, we're coming back with the leg extension, baby. Guys, I am so serious about growing my quads this split. I really want to be built like that mum from The Incredibles, so we're doing all we can here. I'll be doing 3 sets of these for 8 to 10 reps, really controlling the movement on the eccentric and pausing at the top. After finishing with those, we're now going to be doing the leg press. Now, a few of you guys asked me in my last quad video what I thought about the leg press, and I honestly love it. I did it in my last split instead of squats and saw some pretty significant growth from it. The only thing I'll say about it is to make sure you're not cheating your reps. To really get the most out of it, you'll want to focus on getting a deep stretch on those quads. I stripped back the weight on this exercise to focus on my form more, and it's the best thing I ever did. There's no point in doing an exercise if you're purely ego lifting the weight and engaging every muscle except the one you're supposed to be training. I'll do 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps on this one before doing a final back off set of 12 to 15 reps to finish off my quads on this one. Next up, we're going back to the adduction machine. Usually I do these before I hit quads, but I swear every time I want to use the machine this week someone was on it. So it's okay, we'll survive. I'll just do 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps of this before moving on to my glute exercise. And for glutes, we're doing the good morning. I used to do this exercise all the time, but for some reason just stopped, and I have no idea why. It's amazing. I literally still had a glute pump the day after doing these again. Good mornings are very similar to the RDL, but with the bar on the upper back instead of in your hands. The setup for this exercise is pretty much the same as the back squat as well, but we won't be squatting down into the movement. You actually want to think about doing this just like an RDL, with pushing your hips back in space to initiate the exercise. Make sure you're bracing your core to keep your spine as neutral as possible, and sucking in a big gulp of air before you start the movement. You only want to go as far back as you can still feel tension in your glutes and then come back up. Because of how hardcore these are, you only really need to use a more moderate weight, and I'll do 2 sets of 12 to 15 reps of these. And that is us done for another day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for our final workout of the week. To those of you guys still here today, I salute you. You're the real ones. Anyway, today is our final day of the split, and also our final upper workout of the week. First up today, we're starting with the shoulder press again. I actually went through a period of doing these on the Smith machine before I came to my senses and went back to doing them with dumbbells. Just kidding! I hate this version so much more, but I find my progression is better, so I guess I will stick with them for now, unfortunately. Today we shall be starting with 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps. Also, the gym was absolutely roasting this day. Worst decision to wear a long sleeve. I thought I was going to pass out right at the very start. Okay, next up we have another shoulder exercise, the side laterals. I do 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps of these before moving into my third and final shoulder exercise, the upright row. Today I like to focus more on my side delts because my front delts get a lot more love on my chest day from the shoulder and chest pressing movements. So I like to isolate them today at the start to put the most energy possible into growing them. Upright rows are actually pretty underrated for side delts, and I'll do 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps before moving into my next exercise. Next up we have back, and today I'm doing chin-ups. I do these pretty similarly to how I did pull-ups earlier in the week, with 4 sets of 4 to really focus on progression. I also love chin-ups because they're great for the biceps, and my biceps really need all the help they can get in growing after months and months of being neglected. Moving on from back, we have biceps, and again I'm doing some incline curls here, really focusing on stretching back as much as possible when lowering the weight and coming back up to the top of the movement. I'll do 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps of these, and honestly after doing chin-ups the pump is lovely jubbly. Last but by no means least, we have tricep. For today's tricep exercise we're doing the banded tricep dips. I do these banded because I'm too weak to do them normally, to put it nicely. But we're working on it, okay? And that is all that matters. I'll do 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps of these, and then that is me done. I really hope you guys enjoyed this little insight into my current workout split, and hopefully you can take some inspiration from it for your own workouts. Don't forget to comment down below on what videos you want to see from me next, and while you're down there, subscribe and join the family. Hopefully I will catch you guys in my next one.